Today, I want to start the show with something a little different. And this is the great thing about having your own podcast, where you can pretty much go in any direction you want to go. It's your podcast. Um, you know, when you live life, you don't really necessarily know when you're young how it's gonna, like, who's gonna be in your life, where it's gonna take you, where you're gonna live. I had no inkling whatsoever that I was ever gonna move to the Tampa Bay area. Loved New York, loved my family, loved the teams there. I knew I wanted to be a broadcaster. I knew sports was going to be something that I really wanted to predicate what my career was, but I had no thoughts of moving to Tampa ever. And I guess the reason why I bring that up today is because you never know who is going to be in your life and who's going to make a profound impact. And one of those people that really I don't think anybody saw us being friends is a gentleman who passed away today, 4 years ago, and that's the late great Mark Cook from Pewter Report. Now, Mark was a kid from Plant City, Florida State fan, Buccaneers fan. There's no reason he and I should have been tight as a brash New Yorker. And listen, what we talked a lot of smack back and forth, but it was all fun. But we had such a unique relationship. He was always busting my chops. He was always busting my balls on something. I remember I got these brand new purple shoes. I walk into the press box at Raymond James Stadium. I'm feeling good. It's going to be a great day. You know, the security guard Dom downstairs comes said hello. Everybody was just so nice. I was like, man, it's going to be a great day. And all of a sudden I'm walking and I look up and there's Mark and he goes, really? And he just walked right by me. That was it. Really? And he had that such unique sense of humor. Nobody ever liked him. And I remember him coming up to me because he wore suits when he had to do live TV hits with Pewter Report with our friends over at Channel 8. And he goes, I don't know how you do this. I can't stand wearing this. He hated wearing the suits, but he did it. It was part of the gig. But even though we had two completely different backgrounds, we always seemed to find our way to each other. And we always had a laugh. And we always had a lot of fun. And whether he was a guest every Monday on WDAE or see him at Bucs practice or Buccaneers games, I mean, Mark Cook there was just nobody ever like him. I never met anybody like him, and I never will meet another person like him. And I think back to a couple of things. One, I think back to the Super Bowl where I was so fortunate to be there at Raymond James Stadium. And I mean, just think about it, guys. Like it was every other seat filled because of the pandemic. It was weird. And I was in the auxiliary press box where the press box is usually in the south end zone, southwest of the end zone. We were outside of the press box on the southeast side of the field. And I remember getting to my seat. I didn't care. I was in the stadium for the freaking Super Bowl between the Bucs and the Chiefs. I don't give a shit if you put me in the bathroom. As long as I'm in the building, I didn't really care. And I sit down and I look to my right, and who's sitting in the same row in the last seat of my row but Mark Cook. And I was just so glad that I could be there with him. And, we're all doing our work, so we're kind of busy during the game. Obviously we're trying to make sure that we have Wi-Fi, and it's, there's things that are out of our control. And then the game gets played, and the Buccaneers end up winning. And we remember how historic it was and how great everybody felt. And remember, Mark was like a tough guy. Like, he was definitely a guy that was, he's very stoic. He had a very dry sense of humor. And I always try to, like, make him laugh. And he just, he was a little bit of a tough cookie, pun definitely intended. And I just remember when I looked down after the game as the confetti is pouring down, and I looked down to the aisle, and Mark, with his Florida State winter hat on, is just looking up into the sky. Like a child on Christmas morning that is seeing snow for the first time. And as much as I wanted to bust his chops about it, it was like a movie. Everything slowed down. And that was pure joy and pure happiness for a guy that was such a hard ass and didn't want to let, everybody in. Like, that was one of those moments where I can still close my eyes and see Mark's face. And then a year later, I am in New York visiting my family, as you guys know I do, and, a couple weeks. And it was August 11th, 2021. And I had a really bad bout with COVID, if you guys remember. I was out of work for 2 weeks. It was bad. It crushed me. Ironically, in the room I'm in right now, this is the one I actually slept in, and I couldn't get any better. And Mark wasn't feeling too good, and he was asking me how I was. And he was asking me, what did you do? And I want to read the text. He goes, any advice on recovery? And I told him a couple of things. And then the last thing I said was, yeah, man, I think the main thing is to stay occupied. Watch your favorite shows and stay in contact with loved ones. Have your girlfriend model some bathing suits or something to keep you dialed in. I was just trying to lift his spirits because I know he wasn't feeling too well. And then the next day, I'm on my parents' porch in the backyard. It was the most beautiful day. It's ironic how you remember exactly where you are when you hear things in your life. Not everything, but there's certain things in life when you get the news of something, you remember exactly where you are. And I just remember sitting on the porch in the back of my parents' house and getting the news less than 24 hours before I sent him that text message, and he replied with a laughing emoji. Then Mark Cook passed away at the age of 50. Still, man. I mean, 4 years later. I'm not going to lie and say that, like, Mark was like my best friend, but we were good friends. We were good pals. I mean, shit, we talked less than 24 hours before. And I just remember just being like, my mom came out, and it's just, it's 4 years ago. I'm 36 at the time. And your mom comforts you at 36 years old because your friend passed away. That's why I try to tell you guys a lot that it's so important to communicate with people. Mend those fences that have been bashed down. You never know, man. I had no idea. I knew Mark wasn't feeling good, but you don't think at that time like he's not feeling good because he's going to pass away. That was the last time I ever spoke to him. And I think every once in a while when I wear crazy ass shoes, like Mark would have killed me. He would have said, what'd you get, just in the dark? We remember a guy like Mark Cook, Pewter Report, and Scott Reynolds and the whole crew. They've done such a great job of, remembering him over the years. And on a day like today, this is why I'm so grateful to have my own podcast, because in a world where sports media has to be about topic A and all this bullshit, and let's talk about the same story over and over and over again, and let's talk about terrible things and paint people in terrible lights. I'm grateful for you guys for being here, and I'm grateful to have this platform to be able to highlight a guy that we sure as hell miss here in the Tampa Bay area. But I'm super glad that he was able to be there at Raymond James Stadium that night and to be able to look into the sky and as the confetti fell down, celebrate a championship with his favorite team.